training to failure is a skill.
It is a skill, and it's a skill because it can be improved, which makes it a skill. Yeah, no, training to failure is subjective to begin with. Yeah. And then there's we have to talk about early days of training and someone's introduction to training versus someone who has been training for 20, 30 years. There's a whole spectrum and a whole scope of failure, because you have to fail to know what failure is. And I don't know about you, but I find it bonkers how many of the people I work with, how many of my clients hate failing. Yeah. When I put 8 to 10 on a rep range and it's a week 5 or something, and I go, oh, I only got 6 reps, I only got 7 reps, and I'm like, that's amazing. Would you want to complete everything all the time? Complete it. If you go complete it, you're going to build zero muscle. Yeah. And how do you know where failure is? How do we set benchmarks for where we're gonna program if we've never come anywhere close to failure? You have to fail to know what failure is. Yeah,
absolutely. As well with clients, is something that I think that they find difficult is, let's say the rep range is like 8 to 10. They become obsessed with getting straight 10s.
Yeah, with completing it.
And if you've trained really hard, if intensity is where it should be,
it's impossible.
You would probably get a 10, maybe a 9 or an 8.
I'm the king,
and then a 7.
I'm the king of dip off. You've watched me do it. We trained the other day. I can get 10 reps on something and get 4 on the next set if I've gone in hard enough on that first set, and if that was the intention. I fall off a cliff.
And that's the thing, right? So the idea that you can go in and just get straight reps of 10, straight sets of 10, it shows you that you're so far away from failure. If you're far away at the first one, you're so far by the third set, then you're just leaving so many possible gains on the table.
Yeah, and that's why it's a skill, because with any skill you have to develop, you have to practice. The art of any skill is repetition, right? How do you get better at something? Well, repetition. You keep doing it, and you have to keep pushing boundaries, and you have to keep nudging those numbers up, and you have to keep failing. The amount of times, how many times have you missed a lift?
Oh yeah, I mean
the amount of times I've trained 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks in some cases, 4 of periodization as well. So it's like the end goal in 64 months time is to lift X amount of weight, and the program goes perfectly. The whole everything is to the T. It has, of course, it's going to be tough, but I get to that point. There's somewhat of a strength peak leading up to it. I rest efficiently. I make sure I'm nutrition, everything is bang on point. I show up on the day and miss it.
Yeah.
It's the amount of times I've done. Well, it is. I know. It is, because I've been there, and it is very frustrating. I've launched flipping belts across the gym and all sorts. But the point I'm trying to make is, you've got to fail to understand. The only way you're going to learn how to engage that much of yourself into this. The only way it's going to happen is by trying.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, I think people associate failing in the gym with failing outside of the gym.
Yeah, I think.
And to be fair, failing outside of the gym isn't a bad thing. It just means that you tried.
Well, it depends what you do with it.
Something, right? It depends what you do with it. And that's the thing, is it's the same thing in the gym. Like, you fail. That's, at least you now know what you can do, and you know what you can't do. And then from there, it's only lessons to be learned for your next session.
Well, there's like studies they've done, and I'll be paraphrasing because I'm somewhat, and you remember a study, the gist of it, and so I'll just make it up, and it'll be probably, there's a study by a guy called Geoff Foden, but where they actually get people to learn a skill. They have to learn a skill before they actually then, like, they have to get everything perfect before they actually do something. And then the other lot, they basically just do it until you figure it out. And that lot always do better, because it's a repetition game. You're figuring stuff out. And there's that side of training where it's like, you have to figure out failure. You have to fail. You have to end up stuck under a bar to find out what it feels like, how hard you have to go in, the energy, the amount of grit you have to put into that lift.
Yeah, man. It's all lessons, isn't it? It's all lessons, man.
Lessons,
and that's where the magic happens. That is where the adaptation happens. You have to work to a point that you haven't worked before. It has to be harder than you've worked before to elicit any kind of adaptation. And the more advanced you are with your training, the more important that becomes.
Bang on. Nothing happens in your comfort zone.
There you go. Bosh.